When dawn finally broke, the storm had passed. The rain had washed the mountains clean, leaving behind skies of bright, endless blue. The sunlight spilled across the lodge, painting the wooden beams and stone walls in soft gold. For most guests, it was a cheerful sight. For Emma, 'twas bittersweet because she knew the weekend was coming to an end. Ethan bounced with excitement as she helped him zip up his backpack. "Grandma, can we stop for pancakes on the way home?" he asked, his voice full of youthful energy. Emma smiled, brushing his hair back with tender fingers. "Of course, sweetheart." Pancakes sound perfect, but her heart was heavy. Not because of leaving the mountains, nor the cozy little hotel. It was because of the man she knew she would have to leave behind, not Michael. The thought of him had kept her awake for hours after the storm had quieted. She had lain in the dim glow of the lantern, her mind replaying every glance, every word, every moment of unexpected connection. His voice still echoed in her chest, low, steady, full of warmth. His kindness lingered like a touch she couldn't forget. She told herself she was foolish, that it had been nothing but conversation, nothing but chance. And yet, when she looked at her reflection in the morning light, she saw something in her eyes she hadn't seen in years. A spark. A reminder that she was not invisible. That her heart was not done beating. As she carried their bags downstairs, Ethan ran ahead, eager to explore the lobby one last time. Emma followed slowly, each step heavy with a quiet ache. And then, there he was standing near the front desk as though he had been waiting for her. Michael. Their eyes met across the lobby. For a moment, the world seemed to still. No footsteps. No voices. Just the quiet understanding that this was goodbye. He stepped forward, his hands folded behind his back, his posture as calm as ever. "Checking out already?" he asked, though the question was almost unnecessary. Emma nodded, adjusting the strap of her bag. "Yes, Ethan's eager to get home. And Robert will be back from his trip tomorrow." The mention of her husband's name sat heavy on her tongue, grounding her, reminding her of the lines she could not cross. Michael's smile was faint but genuine. "It's been good having you here. The lodge feels different when there's laughter in it. Your grandson has a wonderful spirit." Emma returned the smile, her throat tight. "Thank you. He enjoyed it. I enjoyed it too." She hesitated, then added softly, "More than I expected." Their eyes held each other's. It was only a glance, but within it lay everything unspoken. The laughter they had shared. The moments of silence that had been comfortable rather than awkward. The spark of connection neither had sought but both had felt. Michael cleared his throat gently, as though searching for the right words. "Life surprises us sometimes," he said finally. "When we least expect it, someone comes along and reminds us that we're still alive." Emma's chest ached. She wanted to respond, wanted to confess the storm inside her heart, but her lips parted and no words came. Instead, she reached for Ethan's hand, grounding herself in the warmth of his little palm. But just as she turned toward the door, Michael reached out hesitantly. Carefully, Anne touched her hand. It wasn't a grasp, not even a hold. Just the lightest brush of his fingers against hers, enough to send a shiver through her. It was a goodbye, a thank you, and a silent confession all in one. Emma froze, her breath catching. Then, slowly, she met his eyes. There was no plea in them, no pressure, only understanding. He knew as well as she did that this was where it ended. But the look in his eyes carried something deeper. A reminder that she was still capable of being seen. That love and longing weren't just memories, they were possibilities. "Goodbye, Mrs. Jennings," Michael said quietly. Emma's voice trembled, but she managed to reply, "Goodbye, Michael." She walked out of the hotel with Ethan at her side, the crisp autumn air rushing to greet her. The mountains stretched endlessly before them, their peaks glistening in the sunlight, as though the world had been freshly painted overnight. Robert would return tomorrow. Life would slip back into its familiar rhythm of routine, responsibilities, and unspoken silences. She would smile at her husband, prepare dinner, and listen to him talk about meetings and numbers. She would play with Ethan when he visited, fold laundry, tend the garden, Everything would be the same. And yet, it wouldn't, because something had shifted inside her. Emma had not crossed any lines. She had not betrayed her vows. But in Michael's smile, in his words, in the quiet moments by the fire and the stormlit window, she had been reminded of something vital. Her heart still longed. Her spirit still reached. She was still capable of feeling alive as the car rolled down the winding country road. Ethan chattered happily about pancakes, school, and the puzzles he had solved. Emma nodded and laughed where she could, but inside, she was holding tightly to the memory of Michael's hand brushing hers. The question lingered in her soul, unspoken yet powerful. What happens when you realize there is more to life than what you've settled for? She didn't know the answer yet. Perhaps she never would. But as the sunlight spilled across the road ahead, Emma allowed herself to believe in the possibilities, just the possibility that it was not too late for her heart to be touched again. And though she left Michael behind, she carried him with her, tucked quietly into a corner of her heart where longing and memory intertwined. Not as betrayal, not as regret, but as a reminder that she was still alive. Emma's breath caught. She wasn't sure why, but those words wrapped around her like an unseen hand, tugging at a part of her she hadn't acknowledged in years. They spoke for nearly an hour. The kind of conversation that didn't feel forced, as if they were two old friends catching up rather than strangers who had just met. He asked her about Ethan, about her life in Boston, about what she enjoyed outside of being a grandmother. She found herself laughing, really laughing, at his dry humor and clever observations. When she told him she used to paint but hadn't picked up a brush in years, his brows lifted. Why not? Emma hesitated. I suppose life just got busy. Robert and I raised 2 children, then work, then helping with the grandkids. Somewhere along the way, the things I loved slipped to the back of the shelf. Michael leaned forward, his voice thoughtful. Maybe it's not too late to take them down again. His words hung in the air, both simple and yet strikingly intimate. For a moment, Emma couldn't look away from him. Something about the way he said it made her feel seen, truly seen in a way she hadn't for a very long time. Her heart thudded, and she quickly glanced down at her hands, folded neatly in her lap. She reminded herself who she was, Robert's wife, a grandmother, a woman who had built a life on loyalty and duty, and yet, when she finally excused herself to return upstairs, she felt lighter and heavier all at once as she closed the door to her room. Emma leaned against it, her breath unsteady. She touched her lips without realizing why, as if expecting to find something left behind there. Something warm, something dangerous. She shook her head, scolding herself silently. It had been nothing more than conversation. A kind man sharing his evening with her. Nothing more. And yet, as she lay awake beside her sleeping grandson, she couldn't stop hearing Michael's voice in her mind. Life has its seasons, and we have to stay open to what may still come. What did he mean by that? What was it stirring inside her? Emma turned on her side, pulling the quilt higher. Her heart beat faster than it should, and though she tried to will herself into sleep, the truth was undeniable. Something had shifted tonight, and she didn't know whether to be afraid of it or grateful for it. Morning light poured into the hotel room, pale and gentle at first, but by noon the sky had turned gray, heavy with clouds that seemed ready to break at any moment. By early afternoon, rain lashed against the windows, rattling the glass as wind whistled through the mountain valley. Ethan didn't mind. He sat cross-legged on the carpet with a puzzle spread out before him, his small fingers fitting pieces together with the patience only children seem to have. "Grandma," he said, concentrating, "when the rain stops, can we go for a walk by the lake?" Emma smiled softly, brushing a strand of hair from her face. "Yes, sweetheart. When it clears, we'll go." But in her heart she doubted the storm would pass quickly. The forecast had warned of 2 days of steady rain, and now it beat down with relentless persistence, as if to remind her that life sometimes forced stillness upon people who didn't know what to do with it by late afternoon. Emma's restlessness grew unbearable. Ethan was content, but she found herself pacing by the window, her shawl wrapped tightly around her shoulders. The rain's rhythm was like 1,000 whispered secrets urging her to move, to seek something. Finally, she slipped on her shoes and told Ethan she was going downstairs for tea. "I'll bring you back some cookies, all right?" She promised. He grinned and nodded, too absorbed in his puzzle to question her. The dining room was warm, filled with the scent of baked bread and spices. Only a handful of guests lingered, chatting quietly over coffee. Behind the counter stood Michael, arranging cups on a tray. His presence, once again, seemed to anchor the room. When he noticed her, his expression shifted into that same gentle smile she had come to recognize, a smile that carried no urgency, no demand, but something steady and welcoming. "Mrs. Jennings," he greeted, braving the rain. She laughed softly, her voice a little more nervous than she intended. "I think I was going stir-crazy. My grandson's happy with his puzzle, but I needed to stretch my legs." "Understandable," he said, lifting a delicate porcelain cup. "Would you like some tea? We've just brewed a fresh pot chamomile with a little honey." Emma hesitated, then stepped closer. "That sounds perfect." As he handed her the cup, their fingers brushed. Just for a second. Just enough. The contact was fleeting, innocent, but it sent a warmth rushing through her veins that had nothing to do with the tea. She nearly dropped the cup, catching it with a shaky laugh. "Sorry," she murmured. Michael's eyes flickered to hers, something unreadable in them. No need to apologize. They sat together near the window, watching the rain stream down in sheets. For a while, neither spoke. The storm filled the silence for them, its rhythm almost hypnotic. Finally, Michael broke it. "Rainy days used to make my wife restless," he said quietly. "She hated being cooped up. We'd drive out, even in weather like this, just to feel the road under us. Sometimes we ended up lost, but she loved the adventure." Emma listened, her chest tightening at the tenderness in his tone. She envied that memory, envied the passion behind it. Robert had once been adventurous too, back when they were young and foolish. But now everything was careful, measured, practical. Michael turned the question toward her. "And do storms bother you?" Emma gazed at the rain, her reflection blurred in the glass. "I don't know. They used to, but lately I find myself unsettled either way. When it's sunny, I feel restless, like I should be doing more. When it's storming, I feel trapped, like I'm missing something I can't name." Her words hung between them, heavier than she expected. She hadn't meant to confess so much. Yet Michael didn't flinch. Instead, he leaned slightly closer, his voice low. "Maybe what you're missing isn't outside. Maybe it's something here." He touched his chest lightly. Emma's breath caught. She stared at him, the firelight from the nearby hearth flickering across his features. He looked steady, grounded, but his eyes, those sharp blue eyes, were alive with something more. She sipped her tea to steady herself, though her hands trembled slightly. This was dangerous. These conversations, these small moments, they weren't supposed to matter. And yet each word seemed to slip past her defenses, waking feelings she thought she had buried under years of routine and loyalty. Her marriage was not unhappy, but it had become predictable, safe. Robert was dependable, but not present in the way he used to be. Emma could barely recall the last time he had looked at her the way Michael was looking at her now, though she was not just a wife, not just a grandmother, but a woman still capable of being seen, of being wanted. The storm outside raged on, as though echoing the storm inside her chest. That evening, when the rain grew louder and thunder rolled across the mountains, the hotel's power flickered and then went out entirely. Gas lamps and candles were lit, throwing long, trembling shadows along the walls. The sudden darkness seemed to heighten everything, the sound of Ethan's voice as he asked if it was safe, the weight of the silence between conversations, the way Emma's heart raced with every flicker of lightning. She tucked Ethan into bed early, reassuring him the lights would return soon. He fell asleep quickly, worn out by the day, but Emma found herself staring out the window again. The storm had transformed the mountains into a blur of darkness, the rain blinding against the glass. She pressed her hand to her reflection. as though searching for something just beyond it. Then came a knock at the door, soft, polite. Her heart leaped into her throat. She opened it to find Michael standing in the hallway, holding an umbrella and a lantern. His hair was damp, rain still clinging to his jacket. "The storm knocked out the power in the other wing," he explained gently. "I just wanted to make sure you and your grandson were comfortable here. Do you need anything?" Emma swallowed, her hand tightening on the doorframe. His concern was practical, simple, and yet the way his eyes lingered on hers told another story, one she didn't dare put into words. "We're fine," she said softly, her voice almost catching. "Thank you," he nodded, his smile faint but sincere. "Good. I'll be nearby if you need me." As he walked away, lantern swinging in his hand, Emma's chest tightened painfully. She closed the door, leaning against it, her pulse racing. The storm outside might rage on for hours, but it was nothing compared to the one inside her. For the first time in years, she felt alive. But with that came guilt, confusion, and a dangerous yearning she didn't know how to quiet. When Emma Jennings zipped up her overnight bag, she didn't think much of it. To her, it was just another weekend, one that she had arranged for the sake of her grandson. Ethan, her husband Robert, was away in Chicago on a business trip. And rather than stay home alone, Emma thought it would be nice to take Ethan on a little adventure. The plan was simple enough: 2 nights at a small countryside hotel in Vermont, with board games, hot cocoa, and perhaps a swim in the heated pool. It sounded harmless. But Emma had no idea how much a single weekend could stir her heart. The drive through the winding country roads already felt different. Autumn had brushed the landscape with its golden fingers. Trees blazed in hues of red, amber, and burnt orange, their leaves carpeting the roadside like spilled paint. Ethan sat in the back seat, swinging his legs and asking an endless stream of questions. At 7 years old, he had the kind of energy that could fill any silence. Emma smiled, answering him here and there, though her thoughts drifted elsewhere. Robert's absence had been more noticeable lately. He had always been a hard-working man, reliable, steady, the sort of husband friends admired. But his business trips had grown longer, his calls shorter, his laughter rarer. Emma didn't resent him. After 30 years of marriage, she had long learned that love often matured into habit, into companionship, into duty. Yet, sometimes, late at night, she caught herself staring at the ceiling, wondering if the spark they once had quietly flickered out as she pulled into the hotel's gravel driveway. Emma pushed those thoughts aside. The building stood proudly against the backdrop of rolling hills. A rustic wooden lodge with wide porches and stone chimneys that whispered smoke into the crisp air. Its charm was undeniable, like something pulled from a postcard. "Wow, Grandma, look at the mountains!" Ethan exclaimed, his little hands pressed against the window. Emma laughed softly, her heart warming at his excitement. "Yes, sweetheart. Isn't it beautiful? We're going to have fun here." The automatic doors opened, and a soft wave of warmth and firewood scent enveloped them. The lobby glowed with amber light from the fireplace, and polished wooden beams stretched across the ceiling. The sound of distant laughter and the faint melody of piano music made the place feel alive. Almost enchanted, Emma felt her chest tighten. She didn't know why, but the air in the lobby seemed different, inviting, yet heavy, as if it carried secrets waiting to be uncovered. Ethan, of course, wasted no time. He spotted a rack of brochures about the hotel pool and darted ahead, his sneakers squeaking against the wooden floor. "Grandma, look, they have a game room too," he shouted, his voice echoing across the hall. Emma chuckled. But her amusement was quickly replaced by something else, something she couldn't quite name. When her eyes fell on the man behind the front desk, he looked up from his ledger, and their gazes locked for just a fraction of a moment too long. His presence was calm, almost commanding, yet softened by a quiet warmth. His hair was peppered with silver, mostly at the temples, and his eyes clear blue. Sharp yet kind, seemed to hold years of stories. "Welcome to Maplewood Lodge," he said, his voice steady, low, and rich with an ease that immediately settled in her chest. "We don't see many guests this time of year. You've picked a peaceful weekend." Emma straightened her posture without realizing why. "Yes, I thought it would be nice for my grandson and me. My husband's traveling for work." She hated how quickly she mentioned Robert. As if to shield herself from some unspoken thought. The man nodded, sliding the key card across the counter. "Well, we'll make sure you're comfortable. My name's Michael. If you need anything at all, don't hesitate to ask." Michael. The name lodged itself in her memory with surprising ease. Ethan tugged her hand, bouncing with excitement. "Grandma, can we go now? Please, I want to see the pool." Emma smiled, though her heart thudded strangely as she gathered their things. "Of course, sweetheart." She turned back to Michael briefly. "Thank you." He smiled again, the corners of his eyes crinkling. "Enjoy your stay." It was nothing, just a polite exchange. One she should have forgotten the moment she walked away. But as she followed Ethan down the hall, her bag heavy on her shoulder, Emma couldn't shake the sense that his gaze lingered a heartbeat longer than necessary. And, though she told herself it was silly, she didn't mind. Their room was cozy, with quilted blankets on the beds and a window overlooking the mountains. Ethan threw himself onto the nearest bed with a laugh, his shoes still on. Emma shook her head, chuckling as she pulled them off him, her grandmotherly instincts returning with ease. Yet when she sat down at the edge of the other bed, her thoughts drifted back to the lobby, to the way Michael's voice carried warmth, to the steadiness of his eyes, to the way he seemed to notice her, not just glance at her, but really see her. It unsettled her. She had come here for a weekend with Ethan, for hot cocoa and puzzles, for laughter and memories. Yet, sitting in that quiet hotel room, Emma felt something stirring deep inside, something she hadn't felt in a long, long time. Longing, but longing for what? Exactly. As Ethan's giggles filled the room, Emma shook her head and forced herself to smile. This weekend was for her grandson, nothing more. She would not allow her mind to wander down paths it had no business exploring still. When she closed her eyes that night, the image of Michael's kind smile drifted back uninvited, leaving her heart restless and somewhere in her chest. A quiet voice whispered, "You didn't expect this, did you?" The first evening at the hotel passed quietly, at least on the surface. Ethan had splashed around in the heated pool until his fingers pruned, his laughter echoing against the tiled walls. By the time Emma coaxed him upstairs, bathed, and tucked him beneath the thick quilt, his eyes fluttered closed almost instantly. Emma sat for a moment on the edge of the bed, listening to the soft rhythm of his breathing. She stroked his damp hair, kissed his forehead, and whispered, "Good night, sweetheart." But once he was asleep, the silence of the room pressed in around her. The television glowed in the corner, muted, but even that didn't fill the hollow. The kind of quiet that settled wasn't soothing, it was heavy. The kind that made her mind wander into places she tried to avoid. She wrapped her shawl around her shoulders and stood by the window. Outside, the night stretched wide and endless, the mountains a dark silhouette against the stars. A faint chill seeped through the glass. Emma hugged herself, but the cold she felt wasn't just from the air. Restless, she slipped on her shoes and quietly left the room, careful not to wake Ethan. The hallways were empty, lined with rustic paintings and the faint scent of pine. She told herself she was only going down for tea, maybe to sit near the fire for a while. But when she reached the lounge, she paused. Michael was there. He sat near the fireplace, a book resting in his hands, his reading glasses perched low on his nose. The firelight painted warm shadows across his face, highlighting the sharp lines softened by age and kindness. He looked so at ease, as though he belonged to the very walls of this place. Emma hesitated, debating whether to retreat. But as if sensing her, he glanced up. His smile was immediate, unforced. "Couldn't sleep?" She laughed softly, tugging the shawl tighter. "It's too quiet in the room. I think I'm too used to the sound of the city. The silence feels loud." Michael chuckled, setting the book aside. "That's an interesting way to put it. I know exactly what you mean, though. When I first moved here, I thought the nights would soothe me. Instead, I found myself listening for every creak in the wood and every whisper of the wind." Emma tilted her head, curious. "You live here?" "At the hotel." Yes, he said, leaning back in his chair. It's been mine for nearly a decade now. After my wife passed, I needed a change. Something steady to keep my hands busy and my mind focused. So I bought this old place and fixed it up. It gave me a reason to wake up each morning. His words settled between them like soft fabric. Emma felt a pang in her chest, not only for his loss, but for the way he spoke of it. Not bitterly, but with quiet acceptance. I'm sorry, she said gently. Losing someone you love? I can't imagine. Michael's eyes softened. It was hard. Still is sometimes. But life has its seasons. I've learned to be grateful for the years we had, and he paused, his gaze flickering toward the flames. To stay open to whatever life might still offer.